Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian from the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C. And we have with us my good friend Todd Harrison, who is the senior budget guy here. Obviously this morning you guys had a pretty neat event where it was CSIS, Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments, CNAS. Am I missing anybody else altogether?
AEI.
AEI, that's right.
And CATO.
And CATO Institute all together using the tool that you developed when you were at CSBA to take a look at various budget options. Obviously the think tanks before have been aligned, CSBA, CSIS, AEI, as I recall, and CSBA together did an event a couple of years ago when you were still at CSBA. Tell us a little bit about what you were trying to achieve with this sort of interdisciplinary defense planning approach.
Yeah, so the idea was to look at all parts of the defense budget and rebalance according to a new defense strategy. So each team was allowed to come up with their own defense strategy, their own priorities, and then determine what capabilities they needed, what force structure they needed, and then put that into the tool and come out of it and figure out how much it was all going to cost. Now, it's different than the previous exercises we had done with other think tanks. And the prior exercises, everyone had the constraint that they had to live within the Budget Control Act budget caps. This time, we said, you don't have the caps, so just figure out what you need to spend to fully execute your defense strategy.
Was it emotionally very difficult for you to do that, seeing as how you don't understand? This is one of the smartest BCA people in Washington D.C., and the word sequestration can send you into a bit of a rage. So I mean, how did that work for you? I mean,
it actually is very liberating.
Was it really?
Yeah, to be set free and allowed to kind of go where the spirit moved. And so one of the things I did with our team.
I'm seeing you sort of prancing through a big field without any budget books attached to you.
It was free at last. And one of the things that we did is I went and I deliberately added back into the base defense budget all of these enduring costs that have migrated into the war budget over the years. And so that's, DOD has said recently that about $30 billion, half of the OCO request for 2017, is actually enduring costs that belong back in the base budget. And so the first thing I did is that we were looking at a 10-year planning horizon. And I said, okay, $30 billion a year in enduring costs, that's $300 billion over 10 years. We're putting that back in the base budget. The reason that was important to me is that, with any defense strategy, you need stability, you need predictability. And the fact that we've got all of these base budget costs sitting out there in OCO, that just leads to uncertainty every year. And worst case, it becomes a political weapon that folks in Congress try to use against each other and in the administration. So let's take that off the table. Let's put it in the base budget. Let's acknowledge that cost and get it in the baseline.
Did you guys, though, take a look at it? And what I should add is that Breaking Defense was, affiliated with this exercise also. Did you guys look at this as where does the money come from? Because if you look at it, you and I over the years have talked about, and it's not a conspiracy, given that we're in a season for that a little bit, but there are various factors that conspire to put pressure on the defense budget going forward, whether they're just actuarial realities with the U.S. population, but also, a 20, it's going to be 20, we're going to hit the debt limit in March. Did you guys factor into that, from a budgetary standpoint? Both of the candidates are promising large spending programs on infrastructure and other things, which could put pressure, and are very likely going to put pressure on defense spending.
Yeah, and so each of the different teams took different approaches, and I can tell you that what I did is I said any strategy that we have has got to be resource constrained. Because if you go out and you plan a defense strategy that requires $1 trillion or more dollars over the next 10 years, lots of new spending, you come back to that exact question of, well, how are you going to pay for it? We don't have unlimited funds. And so in reality, every additional dollar that we're asking for defense, Congress has three basic choices. They can just run a higher deficit, borrow the money, or they can raise taxes on someone, increase revenues, or they can find offsetting cuts elsewhere in the federal budget. Those three things, none of them are easy, none of them are popular. So that's why we've got to be conscious. Even though the exercise itself did not put funding constraints on us, we imposed our own constraints on ourselves and said, look, we got to really justify every dollar that we had here.
And any consensus where everybody agreed these are the certain programs or the priorities that all of us would be investing in?
You know, I don't know if there are that many areas where all 5 teams agreed. I would say that at least 3 or 4 teams agreed in the need for longer range systems, for stealthy and undersea systems, for increased investments in unmanned systems. I think we saw that across the board. And general agreement in increased investments for space systems. And that's something that our team really focused on. Was increasing the resilience of our military space systems, and as much as possible trying to leverage commercial space systems as well.